we ever know the full story of the Moskva? Or will it be warped by propaganda and the truth never revealed? Joining me now for more on that, Masha Gessen, staff writer at The New Yorker and author of The Future is History, How Totalitarianism Reclaimed Russia, also the author of Surviving Autocracy, one of the foremost experts about Russia. Masha, welcome to Reliable Sources. Thank you for coming on the program. I think we need to unpack some of the information wars with regards to this warship, because I'm seeing contradictory messages from Russian state media. On the one hand, this ship was not attacked by Ukraine. There was a fire, they claim, and that's what went wrong. On the other hand, you have pundits on Russian state TV saying, bomb Kyiv, this is war, we need to retaliate for the sinking of our ship. Can both those messages be true? Do they make sense together?
Okay, right. What we're doing right now is exactly what Russian propagandists want us to do, right? Which is amplifying ridiculous messages. Do you not have sound?
Tell me more.
Everything that we hear from Russian official sources, everything that is on Russian TV is a lie, right? This has been documented over and over again. I really don't see why we would go on, a broadly watched CNN program and try to engage with these lies. That is, we know that these are propaganda messages, right? The only legitimate way to look at the Moskva is to say, okay, here's what is known, and here's what we don't know, right? Anything that comes from the Russian propaganda machine is a priori unreliable, and engaging with it is irresponsible.
I think that's really, really interesting, and it's exactly what newsrooms are wrestling with, including the CNNs of the world, where, think about journalism school 101, right, Masha? You're taught to just present both sides, ask for comment, try to be very careful not to jump to conclusions. And yet in this particular situation, in a 21st century information war, where propaganda seems to win the day, some of those journalism 101 rules may have to be revisited. What would you say?
I would say that those are not journalism 101 rules. I think journalism 101 rules are to begin with evaluating your sources, and you don't go back over and over again to somebody who has been lying to you. That is classic BOTHSIDEISM and classic false equivalency. There is no equivalence between the Ukrainian information sources and Russian information sources. Ukrainian information sources, by and large, in the more than 50 days of this war, have proven to be largely reliable. Russian information sources, over more than 50 days of this war and preceding it, have proven to be profoundly, consistently false. Setting them side by side is completely irresponsible. This is not journalism 101. It's the exact opposite of it.
The opposite. So tell us more about your impressions of the media coverage of this war more than 50 days in now. Are you seeing too much of a horse race mentality in the coverage?
Yes, I am. Glad you asked. There's so few ways that we have of telling ongoing stories, and one of them very consistently is the way that we cover, football games, right? And I'm really noticing a lot of that going on with coverage of the war in Ukraine, especially by news organizations that have to do stories day in and day out, right? Where they go, oh, this is a loss for Russia, or Russia, Russia is doing blank, but this means it's going to, it's suffering setbacks, right? This is how Russia is advancing on Mariupol, right? That's not what war is about. Yes, this is what war is about if you are listening to military strategists. But I think our job as journalists is to listen to people on the ground. That's the one thing that we can do that our readers and our viewers can't do, which is actually talk to people who are there, right? And not just to listen to official sources who will tell you about advancing troops or retreating troops. And when you listen to people on the ground, what you hear is death, destruction, cruelty, but also mutual aid, right? Whatever these human stories are, right? And I think that, when the headlines turn to advance, retreat, took this city, controlled this airspace, it really becomes too much like scorekeeping, and that is terrifying and dehumanizing.
It is dehumanizing. So important to hear from people on the ground. Are you finding that's getting harder and harder as weeks go on inside Russia? You have so many contacts, so many friends, some of whom had to flee Moscow and other parts of Russia. But the banner on screen now says dearth of reliable information coming from Russia. If anything, that's an understatement. I get more worried every week about how little we know inside Russia right now. And so what's it been like for you?
Right. It's very hard to get what's going on inside Russia. We, in the first week of the war, basically all of the Russian independent media, and there weren't many to begin with, but there were a handful, they were forced to shut down. Their journalists were forced to flee, and their websites were blocked to Russians. So for Russians who want to get reliable information, follow Telegram channels for independent media. They use VPNs to try to get around the blocking. Right? That's hard. That's time-consuming. That requires at least some technological savvy. And I think people get tired of it over time, and kind of try to correct for the lies that they're listening to or they're seeing on official media. It's really extraordinary. You know, I actually spent last night watching official TV to try to get a handle on what's going on there, and it is every single story is the opposite of truth. Right? They tell things. They take things that would be true about Russians, and they tell these same stories about Ukrainians. But no matter how much you realize that that is a lie, it starts to seep into you after about an hour of it. Your reality, your hold in reality begins to slip. And living in that environment 24 hours a day with less and less information coming in from the outside, less and less information that is actually factually based, your grip on reality starts to slip.
It's a scary, ongoing situation. It's something that's becoming a bigger issue as the weeks and the months grind on. Masha, thank you. I think this was a great Journalism 101 course. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Brad.